Normally, when we talk about history, we talk about the history of kings and queens, great men and women who moved the wheels of change. We think about wars and presidents and dates. In this course, we won't talk about the history of kings and queens, but of ideas. Ideas are powerful. They've changed the course of history countless times. Often, when history changed, it often changed because people changed the way they think. Think about the American Revolution and the ideas that all people are created equal and that people can govern themselves without the rule of kings or queens. Well, those ideas might seem very obvious to you if you were born in the United States because you were taught those ideas from a very young age. But what if you never had been taught those ideas? What if instead, for thousands of years, you and everyone around you basically thought the exact opposite? For most of history, the strongest person got to rule over everybody else simply because they were stronger. They called it might makes right. The Egyptians worshipped their pharaohs as gods. Kings and queens claimed that their rule was God's will. A very convenient idea if you happen to be a king or queen. As you can see, these ideas are extremely different from the ideas that all people are created equal. The idea that people could govern themselves without kings and queens was a very revolutionary idea. The American Revolution would not have been possible without that idea. It never would have happened. And that's what I'm trying to get to. Ideas come first. History follows ideas. The example I'm giving about the American Revolution is just one of countless examples that I could give. If you were to zoom into nearly any historical event, you would find the ideas that had to come first before that historical event happened. In order to study the history of ideas, we need to talk about something called philosophy. Philosophy is a Greek term. Philos means love, and Sophi or Sophia means wisdom. So philosophy means love of wisdom. It's the branch of knowledge that deals with difficult questions that can't be solved with a science experiment. If I drop a phone and want to know exactly how long it takes before it hits the ground, I can solve that question with a science experiment. What kinds of questions can I not solve using science? What is the meaning of life? Is an example of a philosophical question. You can't answer it with a science experiment. So is, what does it mean to be a good person? These are philosophical questions. Maybe you can think of some others. By pondering these deep philosophical questions, we can lead richer and more meaningful lives. We also get to participate in a conversation of ideas that's been going on for thousands of years. This conversation started long before you were born and will continue long after you've left the scene. In the words of Socrates, one of the world's greatest philosophers, whom we shall be studying in this course, the unexamined life is not worth living. But do you agree with such a statement? That statement, the unexamined life is not worth living, is a philosophical statement. Do you agree? Disagree? Why? By thinking about that question, you're practicing philosophy already. You might be wondering, though, what's the point? If you can't solve a question with a science experiment, what's the point in even thinking about it? That's actually a great question. So let's talk about it. Let me give you an example. I'll pose a philosophical question to you, and you can do your best to reflect on what you think the answer is. Do you think human beings are naturally good or naturally evil? That's a philosophical question. You can't answer it with scientific experiment. There is a lot of evidence in the world that shows that human beings are good. And unfortunately, especially if you look back through history, there is a lot of evidence that human beings are evil. So which is it? Think about it for yourself. Here's why it matters. If you believe that human beings are naturally evil, then that means that human beings need to be ruled and controlled because they're evil. If someone commits a crime, we need to punish it very severely. We need strong leaders to guide and govern us. People should not be given too much power because they can't be trusted with it. But what if people are naturally good? In that case, people should be given as much freedom and liberty as possible because they're good. We should be willing to unleash human potential. Power should be given to the people, not the government. The government should be as weak as possible, and we should elect our leaders democratically. If someone commits a crime, we need to look for the social reasons why that person committed a crime, because they naturally are supposed to be tending towards goodness. Maybe you're uncomfortable with both of the examples I just gave. Maybe you believe that human beings are actually somewhere between these two extremes. But hopefully, through this example, you could see the importance of that philosophical question. Believing whether humans are good or evil made a huge difference in what we believed the role of government should be. We started with a philosophical question that can't be proven right or wrong, but then the impacts of our answers to that question were enormous. That leads us to one of the most important lessons of history. Ideas have consequences. Over and over again throughout history, ideas with good intentions have had horrific consequences. Very rarely in history do people think of themselves as evil. Even if you were to think of the most evil people imaginable, they thought they were the good guys, doing good things, motivated by good ideas. This shows us how dangerous and consequential ideas really are. It is extremely important that we critically examine our ideas and our beliefs as much as possible. And that's what this course is all about. Philosophy has a long history all around the world. Every country and region has its own rich philosophical tradition. When we talk about the philosophical traditions that originate out of countries like China or India, it's typically referred to as Eastern philosophy. But when we refer to the philosophical traditions that come out of the United States or Europe, it's usually called Western philosophy. This is a course that will focus on Western philosophy because there's only so much you can cover in one course. If you find this course interesting, I really want to encourage you to try to branch out and see what world philosophy has to offer. The Progressive School of Long Island, for example, is a new humanist school, and new humanism is something that comes directly out of Eastern philosophy, not Western philosophy. The origins of Western philosophy stretch back into ancient history, where we will start our exploration of big ideas. There were a couple of cities and regions that were extremely important to the development of Western thought. Jerusalem in modern day Israel is one such example, and Alexandria in Egypt is another good example. But the most important place to talk about when we're talking about the origins of Western philosophy is in ancient Greece, in the city of Athens. There is where exploration will begin. This concludes Lesson 1 of Big Ideas Throughout History.